I spoke with Elon. We were texting within the last hour, and I told him to continue the effort because it's really important for us to restore fiscal sanity to Washington.
We don't pledge allegiance to Elon Musk. We don't pledge allegiance to the creepy 22-year-olds working for Elon Musk. We pledge allegiance to the United States of America.
Wow, when it comes to Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, Republicans, they are falling in line, and some of those Democrats, they are starting to fight back. So let's discuss with a man who certainly knows Elon Musk, Max Chafkin, Bloomberg Businessweek journalist and co-host of the Elon Inc. podcast. You must have to do this podcast now, 7 days a week, nonstop. It went from a once a week, and now it's a 24/7 news hotline.
We had to go emergency when he took over the Treasury on Saturday.
That's amazing. And Tim O'Brien is here, Bloomberg Opinion senior executive editor and Trump biographer. We're going to talk about Elon Musk, but I just have to get your reaction. Donald Trump's apparent plans for Gaza. You've covered this man for years. We've now heard about the Riviera for the Middle East. What's your take?
Trump called it a takeover, and I think we should focus on that we could take over Gaza, and this isn't
a barren, open land in the middle of Canada.
Well, it's also not an M&A deal. Right?
Correct.
And Trump was bad at those too, by the way. He routinely got fleeced by deal makers who were better than him. But that aside, Gaza is the center of geopolitical upheaval.
For decades and decades.
It's a war zone. And there's been a massive loss of lives on both sides. It's tragic. It is not an M&A deal, and it's not an empty parking lot that can be zoned and subdivided and built out like a Trump golf course. However, that's how they're talking about it. And Jared Kushner himself, sitting in an office in Florida, said, that land, there's a lot of good waterfront land there. It could be like a Riviera. And the fact that Trump and his family are so utterly transactional that they can't even look at a reality in the Middle East that requires a lot of diplomatic sophistication, because everything that is done there is going to echo across the rest of the region. And they're just dropping into a framework and language that they're comfortable with, but it's absurd.
All right, Max, let's talk about Elon Musk. Early days, the idea was he was going to be kind of hiding in the background, pulling strings. But he is even more than front and center. I mean, this guy is getting more headlines than Donald Trump. What is your latest reporting?
Yeah, he is not a behind-the-scenes kind of guy. I mentioned over the weekend he got access to these, or we believe he got access anyway, to these Treasury Department payment systems. This is very strange. It is not a normal thing. It's probably illegal. And just a huge expansion of his authority. And then there was this account of Elon Musk and his, these Doge young men and perhaps a few women, I'm not sure, but the Doge kids who basically broke into the USAID office as part of what Elon Musk described as taking a wood chipper to the agency. And this is like a federal agency that is, really important, does all this important work all over the world, and just speaking about it in just really callous terms of destruction. And so he has been front and center, and potentially, as those clips show, potentially doing stuff that could prove to be unpopular, I think.
Elon Musk and Trump allies argue, well, we need this. We need somebody to come in. We need like a restructuring guy to come in, look at these budgets, slash them, clean them up. The United States government has been bloated and lazy for years and years. But why should we believe Elon Musk, right? While he's an extraordinarily successful business guy, he himself is an agent of chaos.
Well, and he's not a universal genius. None of us are. He made a hash out of Twitter. Max knows this very well. He didn't understand the media industry. He didn't understand social platforms. And he went in there and essentially blew up a platform that had very valuable relationships and served a very overt need.
He would argue it's more successful than ever. He would argue.
Well, it would be successful if what he wanted to do was poison the well at Twitter, drive some other people off the platform, and use it to service his own political needs.
Yes, and yes.
Yeah, so in that regard, Sure, that's successful for him. And if you can blow billions of dollars down the drain in the service of that, fine. But in terms of the finances of it, or in terms of the management of it, it's not objectively successful. And he's now coming into the federal government. He has no experience. One can belittle the idea that you need any experience to run the federal government, but it's not true. We all rely on the federal government when we have a need. People turn to FEMA when there's a natural disaster. All the people that say they hate the federal government or they don't want the government to intrude in their lives turn to the government to defend them in foreign wars and to protect them during natural disasters at home. And if these guys were very serious about cutting back government spending, they'd have to look at Medicare, Medicaid,
and
Social Security and defense spending. That would, and they're not going to touch any of that, which means their impact on federal spending is going to be next to nil. If they want to come in and make the agencies themselves function more efficiently and get a bead on what the right level of employment is and the right way to run those agencies more effectively, you don't come in there and kneecap veterans who actually have skill sets and expertise and understanding about how to deliver services. This is performative. And it's a stage act, and Trump and Musk both like to see themselves as change agents rather than simply agents of chaos.
Let's talk USAID for a moment, because our friend Peter Baker wrote the following today. Total USAID annual spending to provide food, medicine, shelter, and other services to impoverished countries around the world, $38 billion. Total increase in Elon Musk's personal net worth since the November election, $156 billion. All of that made me remember back when Elon Musk, this had to be 2 years ago, when he said he was willing to spend $6 billion to end world hunger. What happened there?
I mean, Tim hinted at this. Twitter was a success as an influence play. And I think there is a way to see what Elon Musk is doing with the government.
But
as
remember
an
when he said,
play.
I will spend $6 billion and I will end world hunger?
I mean, he's on to the next thing. He's on to being
that
this
check was
kind
never
of.
Cut.
It wasn't cut. He has given very little money to philanthropy, and I think in Elon Musk's mind, sending Elon Musk to Mars is a form of philanthropy, is maybe the greatest form of philanthropy. It also happens to be a way that, guarantees him, if he were able to convince Trump and NASA and the American public that this was a good idea, it would be worth tens of billions of dollars.
And it's been his dream to go to Mars for years and years.
Let's let him go.
Yes. But
he can go.
Except he wouldn't be doing it on his own dime. He would now have the U.S. government behind him. And I'm unfamiliar with any group of voters that said going to Mars was a top priority for them.
Also, Tesla was a creation in part of federal subsidies. It was also innovation, great private enterprise, but it was a nice example of a public-private partnership that ended up being successful. And he's now allied with a president who wants to gut the EV industry and has no patience for it. From a business standpoint, again, it makes no sense for him to be in that relationship, but I think he's now focused on being performative and not being productive.
Performing works at times.
Yeah, it does.
We're going to have to keep covering it every night.